Hello, everyone. The first week is about to start. I would like to give you an introduction about the contents in the first week. In the first week, as you will see that we first started talking about mathematical principles, number system, the simple grammar of mathematics, the truth table. All of these are the foundations of mathematics, and you get to use them throughout this course, and you also get to use them throughout the duration that you're studying mathematics or anything related to mathematics, such as computer science, engineering. These principles are very, very important. So I put these together and talk about them so that you understand what they all means. And secondly, this semester we have a theme. The theme of the semester is function. Okay, then what is function? A function is a rule that assigns each input exactly one output. Okay, so that's the definition of function. In a shorter notation, I would, if I have input, okay, and this input will be assigned to a function we call f. F is a rule, so because a function is a rule. Okay, it's very important to understand this word. It's a rule, and it will produce an output. It will produce an output. And this output, okay, we have some notations for it. So for example, I can call the input X. And the output, formerly we know it as Y, but output is also expressed as F, the rule of X. That's how you read it, F of X. So input, output. So in this semester, we're going to talk about many rules and the tweaks of these many rules. So we start with simple rules. Okay, we start with simple rules. Now, before I get into those rules, we're going to talk about it. So we talk about theme of the semester is the function, or rather function, right? So after we study all of these functions, reviewed all of these functions from input to output, output to input, and then you will enter a course called calculus. Okay, so after all of these is being studied, you're going to enter a course called calculus. In calculus, the first word you're going to hear is going to be a function. Okay, everything in calculus is about function or functions and the many forms of functions. So that's why this course is called pre-calculus. Pre-calculus. Okay, so we're gonna study all of these functions. So the first group of functions we are going to study, the first group are these functions, which you're going to see on the right side. Introduction to function. Introduction to function. In introduction to functions, okay, we talk about just the definitions, which is a function is a rule. A function is a rule that assigns each input exactly one output. Okay, then we're going to talk about what is a one-to-one function. Okay, and what is the opposite of one-to-one function? Okay, you're going to see that covered uh, in that recording. And secondly, we're going to talk about increasing function and decreasing function. And even function, odd function. All of these concepts. So once we get into the first group, and we're going to apply these concepts many times over to the function, the first group we're going to study. So let's see what are the functions that's in the first group. The first group includes functions such as, okay, the function, okay, so here's the rule. The rule is that any input, the output is constant. And that's one function, okay? And the second function we're going to study, let me use a little table. So that way, okay, there we go. Okay, so our first function is this rule. This is the first rule, okay? And what's the second one? The second one would be just x. And the third one is x squared. And the fourth one is x raised to the power 3. And then next one is the reciprocal function. Okay. And the next one is the root function, square root function. And the next one is going to be the absolute value function. The absolute value function. And last but not least is the cubic root function. So our first group are really these 8 functions. And what do we study about these 8 functions, right? You can see all of these are 8 different rules, 8 different rules. For these 8 different rules, what are we interested about them? Well, we understand a function is about rule for input to produce output. So what we're interested in, number 1 is a domain, and number 2 is a range. Number 2 is a range. Domain is all possible numbers that will make definition meaningful. In other words, each input from the domain will produce, when the rule is applied to that input, it will produce exactly one output. And all the possible output makes the range. So these are very familiar concept to you. So for these 8 functions, we are going to study, input from input to output. Okay, so for these 8 functions, you will see we study from input to output and domain range. And you will see that we're going to have all these 8 functions being graphed. Okay, so not only we study domain and range, we also study the range. We also study the graph. So from input to output. from input to output. Okay. And at the end of throughout the week, you're going to have 3 quizzes. You're going to have 3 quizzes. Because I'm also, sometimes I give you something extra, like, solutions from another class. If I teach an in-person class and I give something special to that in-person class, I will share that with you. Okay, so, and we also have a homework guide, and I will give you more homework guide as needed. And please feel free to ask me questions whenever you have one. And I'm available 24/7. Any question you ask is going to be replied within 24 hours, including the weekend. During my office hours, of course, I'm going to reply your questions immediately. And if there are more than 1 people, attending the office hours, and I will answer the questions in the order, whoever comes first. But at the end of the office hour, if it has to go beyond the office hour, I will answer all of your questions on that for that period or extended period. Okay. So, and you will see that this function theme will be repeated, right? For example, we're going to study for these 8 functions, which one is 1-to-1, which one is not 1-to-1, which one is increasing, which one is decreasing, which one is even, which one is odd. So these concepts will be applied over and over again. One of the functions I like to call your attention is the absolute value function, because this function is familiar to us, but is not familiar to us, and it is used extensively. So I have 2 lessons on this function. Okay, so please do study this function with great attention. So once again, I want to make this introduction short, but I'm looking forward to interact with you in any way. And don't forget, I have in-person office hours, and I will always be very happy to see anybody during my office hours in person. Thank you for watching.